Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the January 21st, 2020 special meeting of the Glendale City Council. May we have roll call?
Council members Agajanian,
Present.
Garpetian,
Here.
Quintero,
Here.
Devine,
Here.
Mayor Najarian.
Here. May we have your report?
The agenda for the January 21st, 2020 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on Thursday, January 16th, 2020 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. What is the next item?
There are three items before you. The first one is Director of Community Development regarding public hearing on Design Review Board DRB case number PDR 1922955 to install a mural on the facade of a tenant space located at 837 Americana Way, Nike. 1A is a motion approving the DRB application. B is a motion denying the DRB application.
Thank you. Ms. Beers?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, will go directly to Mr. Lanzafame, Director of Community Development.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this is a mural for the facade above the soon-to-open Nike store. You have a rendering in your packet, and that has been updated. It's basically the same pictures, a few more athletes in it. We were able to show you earlier today. The mural does meet all of our standards for murals. It does not include any advertising, numbers, or anything. It is both a piece of art and the design of the facade. Staff is recommending approval. If you have any questions, staff members are available to answer for you.
Okay. I have a couple cards. Marcelo Spina and Todd Lynch. Would you like to speak? Please come forward.
No, those are not.
Oh, item
This is for the
two,
next item.
item one, sorry. Rick Lemo.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, staff. Just wanted to let you know that we have spent some time, quite a bit of time with community development and Roger Kiesel on going through this app with the folks from Nike. We feel very, very fortunate, considering the Los Angeles market, that we were able to attract Nike to put one of their major stores at the Americana, and that they're contributing, I think, in a very positive way, instead of throwing up a traditional sign by utilizing their new mural approach, which is a little bit more understated than a neon sign, but still part of their new marketing approach. If you have any specific questions, we have Patty Wong, who is here representing Nike and can answer any technical questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Okay. The next card I have is from Patty Wong, and I understand you just want to be on an on-call basis, Ms. Wong, for any questions? Okay. Are there any questions or discussion on this matter?
I have one question.
Mr. Garpetian?
Yeah. Is there going to be a sign on the building besides the one that's on the... Just for me to know.
At this point, they have not proposed any signs.
Okay.
It would go through the standard process. There's a sign program for the Americana brand that we would look at, make sure that any sign complies with that.
Sure. Because I see a sign on the storefront, but not on... Okay. So this is the new approach for Nike? The mural?
It's the approach of taking here. I don't know if that's going to be a standard throughout the United States.
Mm-hmm. And maybe you may not know the answer to this question. Is purple an in color nowadays? Is it a fashion statement? Every athlete on in this mural is wearing purple.
I think the
It is.
designer is...
Okay. We've crossed that line. We need Ms. Wong now to come up.
So the artist actually is local from LA. She lives in Pasadena, and so we really are trying to celebrate body diversity, cultural diversity, and the athletes that are shown on the mural. Purple, it's actually, I think it might show up on print a little bit. It's actually blue is the color identity of this location. So it is for this concept of store, a new approach that we're taking, and we really want to celebrate athletes in motion and diversity, and that's what this represents to us.
How do you choose your artists?
We chose her by the artwork that she's done previously, so shown a lot of athletes, different body types, a lot of diversity, and also that she's local to LA. We wanted that to be also something authentic coming from the city and coming from the area instead of, an international artist that doesn't have any necessarily correlation that's tying into the community.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
I'll move 1A.
thank you. Ms. Devine, did you have?
Yes.
No, I'm fine with
You're
it. I
ready?
seconded
Okay.
the motion.
A roll call, please.
Councilmembers Agajanian,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Devine,
Yes?
Mayor Miller.
Yes. Next item.
Next item is Director of Community Development regarding 517 East Broadway Medical General Offices and Retail. Request for adoption of mitigated negative declaration approval of a combined Stage 1 and 2 design review, approval of a creative sign, and approval of an instrument imposing covenants on real property for construction of a new 5-story, 32,500 square foot commercial medical general offices and retail uses. 2A is a resolution adopting a mitigated negative declaration. B is a motion approving Stage 1 and 2 design review. C is a motion approving creative sign. And D is a motion approving an instrument imposing covenants on real property.
Ms. Beers?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, we'll go to Milka Toledo, Senior Planner.
Before we do that,
I may have a conflict of interest, so at this time I'll leave the room. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Milka Toledo, and I will be introducing the project before you, which is a request to adopt a mitigated negative declaration prepared for the project, also approve Stage 1 and 2 final design review and creative sign, subject to staff's recommendations and the instrument imposing covenants for the property proposed for the development at 517 East Broadway, which is to construct a medical general office and retail building. The proposed project was filed prior to the DSP code amendments, and therefore it is considered a pipeline project, subject to the previous DSP standards prior to the changes that recently took place. The project does comply with the previous DSP standards, including parking. No variances are proposed, but it also complies with most of the standards included in the current DSP standards that you recently approved, including the goals and objectives of those standards. They are proposing a 5-story, approximately 32,500 square foot commercial building consisting of 7,698 square feet of medical office space, 21,250 square feet of general office space, 3,552 square feet of ground level retail space, 1,809 square feet of landscaped publicly accessible open space, and 71 space underground parking structure is being proposed. And the applicant is Todd Lynch. As it relates to CEQA, the environmental impacts identified in the mitigated neg deck are associated with cultural resources, so all other impacts are either no impacts or less than significant. And in order to reduce those environmental impacts associated with cultural resources to less than significant levels, there are mitigation measures that are included as part of the project. And that would include that if any remains or objects are encountered during activities associated with the project, then all work will stop and the appropriate agencies will be contacted, including the Native American tribe. In terms of the location, the project is located in the DSP East Broadway district. The district features residential mixed use and commercial mixed use as well. The subject site is located on the northwest corner. This is a very familiar location to all of us, of Broadway and Isabel Street. So it's directly west of us. Currently, the site is developed with a 1-story, 3,976 square foot medical office building, built approximately around 1948, and the adjacent surface parking lot operated by the medical offices for Dr. Nubarjanoyan, all for health, health for all. The property faces Broadway and Isabel Street with a third frontage facing north toward the alley and the neighboring police station. The subject site is adjacent to the Glendale Civic Center campus, including, again, the police headquarters to the north, City Hall to the east, and one-story commercial buildings extending towards the west from the project site, and larger 3- and 4-story buildings that rise across the street to the south along Broadway. The existing site plan, or the site, is 12,086 square feet. That's before the dedication, and 11,831 after dedication. In terms of the site plan, the new proposed development will occupy the majority of the site. Pedestrian access to the building will be from Broadway and Isabel Street, and vehicular access to the site is from the alley along the north side, where there will be a ramp proposed leading to the subterranean parking garage. The ground floor extends the pattern of the storefront retail all the way to the corner, where there's a dramatic sloped glass form and the plaza entry that will be leading to the main entry. This project is using the public open space incentives to increase the FAR in height. In this case, the project proposes 2.74 FAR, and the height will be increased to 5 stories, 69 feet 8 inches. In terms of mass and scale, the proposed height and massing of the building is appropriate to the surrounding urban context. It provides various areas of articulation at street facades that are accomplished through receding and projecting building volumes, and angled east facade, which tilts away from the street, as well as open spaces that are carved into the building volumes to create entries, terraces, and balconies. And also the use of varied materials and textures help break up the massing. And at the street corner above the ground floor, the height and the bulk is modulated by the recessed balconies. And again, the angular form combined with the recesses that are being proposed at the corner mitigates any imposing building mass as viewed from the street, while at the same time reinforcing the character of the building at the street corner. An interesting and unique feature on the building is the irregular spacing of the metal fins at the east facades and the use of the fritted glass at the curtain walls not only appropriately articulate it by aesthetic clouding the building mass along the south and east facades, but it also uniquely articulates the facade and gives it the building character. And this, again, is accomplished through the building's design and use of material, which leads us to design material and the creative sign. So I've alluded to some of them and the building materials, so I won't go into too much detail. But I'd like to mention that the building's color scheme varies from light to dark hues in the metallic fins and the curtain wall frames, and the ceramic fritting on the interior surfaces of the glass creates a patterns varying density and character. So during the evening hours, the building interior will be lit with the LED fixtures designed to illuminate the building through those decorative metal fins and the curtain wall fins on the ground floor and also in the public spaces. So in summary, the building's design and materials underscores the goals and intent of the DSP, which requires that new buildings address the street in ways that reinforce and enliven the pedestrian activity and also enhance the ground level architectural elements on human scale. As far as some comments that staff had regarding the west facade, let me bring that up really quick since we're on the design section. We have 2 conditions that staff is suggesting on the west facade, and that would be to expand the vertical concrete elements and reduce the height of that wall. So the details that you see at the corner, because this is a wall that is located right on the property line, no windows or openings are allowed. And that, again, is because it's on the property line, and that would be per the building code of regulations. So in order to, again, reduce the mass, again, we're suggesting that they take that treatment that they are proposing on the score lines at the corner and extend it towards the north side of that wall. And again, also reducing the height of the wall to again, mitigate that monolithic or mass appearance of the wall as one sees it from the west side. As far as the creative sign, that is also included as part of your motion. They are proposing a sign to identify the building on the east facade. It is approximately 8 feet tall and 40 feet long. Again, the sign is at the building's south corner on the east face, and it would be readily visible for vehicular, pedestrian traffic, again, traveling westbound on Broadway. And the letters are formed by variation in depth of the fins themselves. So by day, it will be readable as a shadow, and by night, by backlighting. Once again, the project will be using the incentive to increase their height and floor area, and with that, they will be required to include publicly accessible open space, or that's what they have opted to choose. So the publicly accessible open space and access to the uses within the building are successfully laid out. They are proposing approximately 1,809 square feet of publicly accessible open and landscape open space along the east side of the building facing Isabel Street. And that area will be integrated into the existing brick paving that's already there. They're incorporating pockets of landscaping, and the applicant will go into more detail, and a meandering parkway. It's programmed, or meandering walkway, and it's also programmed with seating, benches, lighting, and other design elements to enliven and attract pedestrian activity in that area. Lastly, before I conclude my remarks, I would like to mention that we do have in addition to the conditions outlined in your motion, there's an additional revised motion that staff will be requesting that it be included if you are inclined to approve this project, and that would be that the revised motion include a condition for stage 1, stage 2, that the preliminary title report be submitted prior to building plan check. So prior to plan check submittal, to confirm ownership of the site for purposes of executing the instrument imposing covenants on real property. And lastly, as far as the recommendation that staff is making, staff is recommending approval of the project with the conditions that we suggest for the west facade. Outlined in the report is condition 1 and 2, and to revise the drawings to indicate that the maximum building height be no greater, does not exceed 69 feet 8 inches, as requested by the police department, and also to provide additional screening when required along the north facade to meet the security goals of the police department as well. And with that, I will conclude my remarks. If you have any questions, I am available to answer them.
I have a question before we go to speakers. The covenants that you referred to are of what nature are they?
Because they are using the incentive to increase the height in the floor area ratio, and they are also introducing or installing the publicly accessible open space. That is, my understanding, the main reason why we need to include or have the council approve that covenant.
And before we do that, you ask for a title report that shows.
Correct. We
who
just
it's
want
vested
to
in.
confirm and verify for legal purposes as well that they are in fact the property owner.
Okay. Are there any questions of Ms. Toledo? Mr. Garbettian?
Yes, a couple of quick questions. The publicly accessible open space is the one that's facing
Isabel Street.
Isabel, right? Is it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because it looks like a choir sitting there. I can't tell what it is, but it shows a bunch of people in there. So it's about 1,000 square feet.
1,809 square feet.
1,000.
1,809.
Okay,
square feet.
1,809. So it's well visible.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
To everyone, to
Yes.
pedestrians, to the traffic, vehicular traffic, and it's very close to the corner.
Yes.
Also, when they're using the incentive for height,
Yes.
they are going from 65 foot to 69.8, right?
Correct.
So it's, the difference is 4 feet and 8 inches.
Correct.
Am I correct? Am I reading this correct? Because by incentives, you can go up to 80 feet.
Correct.
But they're going from 65 to 69.8 inches.
Yes.
And the FAR from 2.5 to 2.74, so 0.24, yeah, 0.24.
Yes, you're correct.
The FAR, the increase in FAR is 0.24.
Yes, that is correct.
And one other question for the wall on the west side. There is a, I don't know, this doesn't have any numbers, so I don't know how to tell. So this
Yes.
section here, is it, does this have to be this tall? Is it a security issue from because I know they have so many, several outdoor areas. Is right next to it on this section, is there an outdoor area?
I believe there
On the rooftop
is.
area?
Correct.
So-
There is open space in that area.
Okay, so because of that open space, that wall has to be that tall, or it could be a little shorter?
I would defer to the applicant just to
Okay.
make sure if it's for security purposes.
Got it.
But that is the wall that we're asking them to look at.
No, I understand. It's the big blank wall on one side, so, but if you can decrease the height a little bit, it may help as well as, okay, talk about it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I have a
Ms.
question.
Devine?
Mine is about the height, that 69 inches, as requested by the police department. And can you explain that?
Well, they have a heliport on their building, and so they have specific requirements as it relates to how tall a building can be located when close to a heliport to not impede or compromise any activity with the helicopter flying onto the police building.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, I will call up our speakers. Now it's Marcelo Spina, followed by Todd Lynch, Sharif Lynch, Architecture.
Mr. Mayor, honorable council members, members of staff and the public, good afternoon. We're actually just getting our second model here. There's another one which shows the entire site, which supports our presentation.
Give me 1
Can you
second.
put our
Sure.
slide? Thank you. As I was saying, my name is Marcelo Spina. I'm the partner at Patterns. I'm here with Todd Lynch, who's a partner at Sharif Lynch Architects. Together, we're collaborating in the design of Janoyan building, the new Janoyan building at 517 East Broadway, as Milka Toledo just described, only a few steps from where we are right now. It is an honor to come before you today to present what we consider to be an important contribution for the city of Glendale. Let me begin by acknowledging context a little bit. This is maybe clear, but we wanted to kind of make sure that it actually gets underlined. As indicated before, our project faces Glendale Civic Center, which combines buildings from various architectural periods, a loose and unique patchwork of history over a meandering public space. Important to notice are the different styles of these buildings. The Art Deco presence of City Hall, facing off the mid-century modern county courthouse, or the Brutalist building, where actually now, or even the more austere corporate police building. Each of these buildings speaks about their own time, while establishing a relationship to each other over time. Equally important in this case is the meandering public promenade that connects all these buildings together and all these architectures together. Unique in the city because of its scale, pedestrian accessibility, and sense of place. Our project is located just at the edge of this, and in this context and within such important historical dialogue, our proposal aims to extend and enhance this public promenade, creating a significant contemporary addition to this urban ensemble, and extending it as well to the public, to the commercial corridor of East Broadway. The Janoyan, as the building will be named, will be home to the medical offices of All for Health and Health for All, a community health center known for its social services to the poor and uninsured within Glendale. The rest of the building will include rental office spaces, a small amenity in the terrace, and a ground floor retail along both Broadway and Isabel Street, which the client intends to be potentially occupied by a pharmacy on Broadway and a potential small neighborhood cafe facing Isabel Street. Consisting of a total of 5 floors, including a small amenity at the rooftop, the project will be supported by 3.5 levels of underground parking accessible off Isabel Street via the alley. The design, of course, responds to the Glendale downtown specific plan by varying its massing and scale to acknowledge its neighbors, while becoming a distinctive part of its context. As a result, the mass is an elaborate composition of step volumes, inset balconies, and open terraces. As seen in this view, facing the alley and the police department building, a cascading series of terraces and grease roof opens up the building, creating both a series of open spaces for the inhabitants, as well as bringing natural light into the interior. As seen in the corner view, the building integrates its mass to both the scale and program of its context, acknowledging Broadway as a commercial corridor with ground-level retail and Isabel Street as a more civic front. In terms of image, this is not an ordinary office building. I guess it's pretty clear right now, but it's socially engaging contemporary icon with public character, civic identity, and a close dialogue with its neighbors. The reason for this is both simple but important. It is because this building aims to integrate its mission and image within the civic context that it belongs, therefore becoming a potential landmark to the community and representing at the intersection of government, law, and justice the social significance of health and care. Taking cues from the DSP guidelines on composition and modulation, the building shape is varied and dynamic, holding the corner with a volume that almost appears to hover, and inset balconies which bring occupants out to the street to enjoy views of the street and to the surrounding landscape. These balconies both separate and unify the composition, turning from Broadway to Isabel and ascending all the way up to the terrace, where an outdoor trellis frames significant views of Civic Center and the mountains beyond. As was mentioned before by Milka Toledo, especially as seen from West Broadway, the project creates a form of gateway that anticipates both the presence and scale of Civic Center. It also continues, as it's seen here, the retail at ground level. When seen from the corner, the unique formal and material articulation is clear. The Broadway façade's fritted glass silhouette appears in contrast to the Isabel Street façade, which is partially tilted back and cladded with an irregularly patterned brise soleil system. Unifying it all is an exterior soffit cladded with shimmering and embossed chrome metal tiles. You can see this in this picture. As a result, the pedestrian experience, especially from the corner point of view, is both dynamic and engaging, maintaining visual interest, generating contrast, tactility, and an aesthetic allure. As seen here, the thin system unifies the facade, allows for recessed balconies, and protects the building from the sun. Users and the public will enter the building off the corner of Broadway through Isabel Street via a triple high lobby, which is seen here as inset and well demarcated in the composition. Materialized using a combination of stone, metal, and wood, the spacious lobby, which you actually face in, literally opens up towards Civic Center, framing views of City Hall to the left and the courthouse to the right, and offering a sense of place to visitors and users alike.
I have a
Can press the animation. Todd Lynch will continue.
Okay, I think we have a question first.
I just wanted to ask if you could turn this model around so that Broadway is on our side, so that I can just kind of picture, and then we'll look at the video, if you don't mind. So the Broadway faces us. Is that good for all of you?
Yes.
Because I don't know what I'm looking. I think I'm looking at the alley, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, is that good?
Okay.
I mean,
That's Isabel
this
going
is
that way.
Right. Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of the council and staff. Thank you. Again, my name is Todd Lynch of Sharif Lynch Architecture, the other half of the partnership here. If you want to run the animation while we're speaking. Throughout the design process, our team has worked closely with planning and community development to shape the building extents to conform to the DSP and site conditions, such as the 2-foot easement to widen the sidewalk along Isabel Street in front of the open space, and then also lower the building height to 69'8" in order to stay below the helipad level of the neighboring police building. The short animation here helps to show the building in its urban context and how our design connects users and the public at large with the city and the outdoors, and does so functionally, spatially, as well as visually. Our goal is to create a unique aesthetic and cultural setting here in Glendale and a memorable new experience for the city. And then I'll go to the next. Okay, thank you. So the site strategy extends the vocabulary of Glendale's downtown-specific plan and civic center, bringing the red brick paving of Broadway around the corner to Isabel Street sidewalk, and then linking that open space proportionally and visually to the neighboring space in front of the police station to the north. Along Broadway, the building facade aligns with those of its neighbors and continues the commercial corridor street wall, so that's an uninterrupted line. The public open space is meant to be inviting and comfortable, creating a small pocket park that offers midday and afternoon shade, convenient access to retail, site furnishings such as benches and bike racks, and public art and verdant plantings. Closer to the alley, the small park becomes increasingly lush and more natural, punctuated by patches of native plantings and a meandering pathway to the main entry in the retail space. Public art will also be used here to help create a memorable experience within the new Isabel Street Park. We see here a new piece by the Armenian artist Zadik Zadikian, whom I'm happy to say is here with us today in the audience. This piece is entitled Foreigners and consists of a constellation of differently sized and shaped golden figures representing distorted faces, which appear to float within a vast black background. The inspiring public mural will invite visitors to reflect on the nature and dimensions of citizenship in today's culture and society. Harmonizing with the building's other metallic tones, we envision this piece becoming a pedestrian-oriented destination in and of itself, an Instagram-worthy background that will celebrate Glendale's culturally diverse community and resonate with both its heritage and its future. The building uses a sophisticated materiality in its expression. Its color palette varies from light to dark hues and includes materials that are on the board actually behind you, behind the dais there. The dark aluminum in the vertical fins, a gray ceramic frit pattern over clear low iron glass, shimmering and embossed chrome metal panels at the soffits, gray cement boards on vertical surfaces in the courtyard and the party wall, and terraced green roofing and solar panels. At the plaza, we'd have red ceramic brick, recycled wood benches, and local plants in the landscape. This combination of crisp surfaces and strong relief will generate a play of light and shadow that will animate the facade at many scales, whether at a distance or close at hand. The main creative sign, just to go back to that quickly, will function as a subtle urban-scaled identifier for the building. From a distance and at certain angles, the name Genoyan will appear as a legible relief within the fins. The letters will be formed by the variation in depth of the fins themselves. And when you view it obliquely, the sign will fade away within the surface texture and only will come into focus from particular angles. And by day, the letters will be read as shadows, and by night, it would be backlit from the interior of the building without generating any additional light spill relative to the normal building operation. So finally, to conclude, we believe this project will be a great addition to the community in the city of Glendale, enhancing the beauty of Glendale Civic Center with health, retail, architecture, public space, landscape, and art, while connecting it forever to the pedestrian activity of the East Broadway commercial corridor. Mr. Mayor, honorable council members, and staff, it has been a pleasure and an honor to come before you today. We sincerely hope you will support and approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go to my colleagues on thoughts. I'll start with Ms. Devine.
Okay, well,
Go this way.
finally, we have a building that is gorgeous. It's great, looks like great architecture. It's different, it's modulated, it has all those characteristics that we were looking for in the new DSP, design standards, and amazingly, you did it before those came to fruition. So congratulations on that. And I'm looking because I was concerned about if you could put solar on the rooftop. Do you have plans for that?
Yes,
I don't know where
we didn't
go.
mention it, but let's see. Okay, yes, that's sorry. Go back one more. Well, you can see them on the top of this section of the roof, and you can see them in the model here. This entire area is intended for a solar array. Let's see.
So you can also see them in the plan, I guess.
It's a.
Oh, I see. Yes, yes.
You see them there in
Yes.
both fronts.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's only in the main volume of the corner.
Okay, that's great. And
About 40 by 50.
Okay, and it's gold. It's LEED gold. The building.
Well, this is not pursuing certification at this time, but it does meet many of the requirements that would be corresponding to that, and the LEED Cal Green requirements as well. So it does a great deal of stormwater recapture. We have green roofs. We have stormwater management underneath the plaza itself. We'll have native and water tolerant drought-resistant plantings. We'll have renewable energy. We'll have very energy efficient. It's going to be an all-electric building. So many measures of green.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that's good to hear. And the concrete wall facade, you're thinking that maybe that will be lowered? That's that large concrete wall, and you're putting more articulation there, more, so it doesn't look like quite the blank wall that it does in the drawings?
Yeah, so the material forming that will actually have additional joints in it as well, so there will be more of a pattern of those and the ability to texture that. Then these renderings were produced some time back, and we've been thinking about that with council since then, or sorry, with staff since then.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition, we can look at the height that, lowering it to the degree that's allowable for safety under the building code.
Okay. And my last question is, I understand that the art was questionable. I wasn't sure if you were going to put it in, but you have decided to do that, or that was in the original, and I'm so excited that we have an Armenian artist in our community. That's amazing.
Yes, so that is the intention. The path to this meeting has taken some time, and so part of that was just a matter of timing in order to be able to present that vis-a-vis the Arts Commission and so on. So the cycle that has been the intention to include that piece.
So that's a go with the artist?
The owner intends to use the dedicated 2% of the building cost to the piece and not pay the 1% in lieu, so as to kind of, improve the building and improve the public space around it.
Great. Well, I think it's a great building, and I look forward to seeing this one built. Thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's the same artist that did the police.
Yes. I guess.
The police department mosaic. Right. Right. So his artwork is known and is next door. Mr. Quintero.
Yes, I agree. Beautiful building. It's going to be fantastic on that corner. Happy to see the solar. My only one of two concerns is that wall for sure, because when you drive east down Broadway, you're basically going to see a huge wall. So for me, it's not just the height, but actually the extension out to Broadway. I mean, even having railings, I know that there's outside activities on some of the floors, but you've got to get rid of that wall. It just overwhelms. And I personally think it's going to be a while before a building goes in next door. Those are individually owned parcels, and we may be looking at those little storefronts for a long time to come. But anyway, fantastic look. I guess I'm also a bit concerned over the large sign facing east. I don't know that is
the 8-foot by 40-foot sign.
Yeah.
If I can jump in, I think is a little
Overkill.
large, and I think it detracts from the unique architecture.
Yeah.
But
I agree. But anyway, I know the doctor's been trying to bring this to fruition for many years. I'm so happy he's going to realize his dream. And what an addition to that part of the downtown. There's always a lot of activity off of Brand, et cetera, but this particular sort of civic center needs a boost, and for sure this is a major boost.
Thank you, Mr. Quintero. Mr. Carpetian?
Yes, thank you. First, I'd like to thank you for not only bringing us a PowerPoint presentation, a 3D model of it, and also bringing an actual model, so we can take a look at it and see how does this building actually look like on that corner, and instead of just a flat rendering of it, because sometimes it's not very easy to visualize from the flat rendering as to how this building is, and then we'll say, is that what I approved? So this will take care of that, and I want to. This is a great building, and I want to thank you for looking at the rest of the buildings in the area. We usually talk about neighborhood compatibility when it comes to our residential neighborhoods, but I think we need to look into that issue when it comes to our business districts as well. So this one will complement the City Hall, the courthouse, and the office buildings across the street. The blank wall on the east side is our concern. I mean, everyone's concern. And I think what maybe we need to look into with, talk to staff and work with staff on how can you bring some of the architectural elements from the rest of the building onto that wall. So when you look at it, it's one building, basically, one solid designed building. I think it won't be that big of a deal to bring some of the architectural elements from rest of the buildings. And I really like what you've done on eye level, because when there are tall buildings, and the first 2 floors are very important when you have a pedestrian-friendly environment. And what I like about this is the balconies that you have on the corner, the art piece on Isabel. Is it Louise or Isabel? I'm just always mix up the 2 streets. Is it Louise or Isabel? Isabel. I always mix these 2. As well as the publicly accessible open space. The solar panels are there as well. The sign, I don't know, I agree. I think it's a little bit of it may overwhelm the building, although it's up to 60 feet tall. It's on top of the building. I don't know how we're going to see it, but I'll leave it up to the applicant and you guys to work with the staff on maybe tone it down a little bit, if you will. But one question I have on the middle, the architectural elements that you have, it looks like a shutter, right? The metal pieces that goes on the side of the building. What is the depth of those?
Those go, you're referring to the fins.
The fins, yeah.
The fins. They go around like 1 foot.
1 foot?
And they're basically covering in most of the area, both in the tilted facade, but also the one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can.
They basically cover outdoor balconies. So
Got it. Hold on, sir. Hold on, let's get you a microphone so you can be on the record.
So as I was saying, I think in almost 100% of where the fins are here, especially in the tilted area and in this area here, you have outdoor spaces, outdoor balconies behind. So basically, occupants can get out there, have a view, while also being kind of protected from the sun. So the element also kind of serves as a sustainable.
It's a great feature, because some of our old historic buildings in downtown, like Calfield Building, had those shutters. They moved when the sun turned, but it's still there, and it's a great element. I think you brought that to here, and that's what I'm talking about, the neighborhood compatibility, even for downtown area. It's very important. And also, it starts from the corner, which is the highest point, and it steps down on the sides, so it won't overwhelm the police building, and it won't overwhelm the neighbors to your west. So I'm all for this project as well. I want to congratulate you. This is a great design. The outdoor spaces that you have, it's amazing. I haven't seen this many outdoor areas for an office building of a 30,000, 32,000 square feet, something like that range. So I'm all for this project as well, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do like the building. I like the fact that there's open space galore all around it. I agree with my colleagues regarding that western wall. There's another western wall, but that's, then I guess they're kind of similar. I mean, with anyway, let's not go there. I think it's interesting that some of the better designs that we've had as a city have come from these 4 or 5-story commercial buildings, many of them office buildings. There's one down on Colorado that we had approved a couple years ago that is unique in its style and its lighting as well. So I very much like the building. I'd like you to come back with something different on the creative sign. I think it's a little too... There's one on the ground floor, which I'm okay with, which is not subject to review. But the one up there at 8 feet by 40 feet, I think does detract from the architectural quality. So come back if you would, and work with staff and get us something that's a little more modest, I guess is a word for that. I have no problems with the adopting the mitigated negative deck. This is a stage 1 and 2 design, so I have no problems with that. I support the efforts to get to LEED's Gold if that comes across, but I'm not going to make that a condition. And obviously the covenants were explained by Ms. Toledo. Those are necessary to go forward with this. So all in all, I think this will be a great addition to our civic center, our civic plaza, or our civic campus.
I'll move the item.
So you want to move the resolution, the motion for stage 1 and 2, and the covenants?
Yes.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I wanted to get back to the leads, and I wanted to see
Okay.
if we could possibly put that into...
Oh, you want to make that a condition?
I would. It's, I think it's important at this point in our environment and our city design and pedestrian. I just would like to make sure that that's...
So Title
a part of it.
24, is that the right title? Gets you to LEED Silver, basically, does it not?
At this point, it's quite strict, so you get
You're about
quite
there.
a bit of the way there. Yes, and we have a lot of other features that would qualify. We would have to be ready to make a design submittal in fairly short order when that before that would go to construction. But I think there's still time.
Is it, so it's possible for you
It's
to...
still within the possible.
So would my colleagues support making it a condition to be designed as a LEED's Gold project?
What is the difference between, just for everyone to know, from LEED's Gold and the Title 24, the silver?
So Title 24 is really strictly the energy code, so the energy use of the building, and both passive and active means. Cal Green, the Green Building Code, goes beyond that and looks also at material reuse, interior healthy environments, water savings, and location and transportation issues, and all those sorts of things. Many of those are, mandatory requirements in the building code anyway, and so we are definitely complying with those. We're going beyond them in certain regards, although to this point we haven't registered the project for LEED certification. That's a separate process through the Green Building Council.
So going from LEED Silver to Gold, how much of a extra work you have to do to get there? Based on today's codes?
Based on today's codes, I think Gold would be. I haven't reviewed the potential scorecard for this, but it would seem within range to earn Gold with this project.
Okay.
Many of the features can be done. There is additional time, though, to register with LEED, and then you have to have somebody that's monitoring throughout construction. And then ultimately, you submit and get that certification. If you do want to, we would bond for the value of that in order to make sure that they get that certification. So there's some other administrative things that we do with that.
So is that a condition, I guess,
I would like to
moving
make that
for a condition to be
I would.
placed on that?
Mr.
Yes,
Mayor, could
Mr. Garcia.
condition be written in such a way that it's subject to legal review? I'm a little concerned about imposing that condition on a project.
Okay, well, we always want to be
Right, legal.
subject to legal review and approval by the city attorney's office.
Okay.
So will the maker
Yeah.
add that
I'll
as a
make a
friendly
modification,
motion,
yeah.
friendly amendment?
Friendly amendment.
Okay, so the only thing we're leaving out is the sign. And I guess can we just give direction to staff to work with them to come up with a better sign?
Correct. If you're not approving the creative sign proposal,
Right.
then.
I don't think we're
at this
ready
point,
to
you can just
approve
give
it.
them direction.
Okay, so that'll be, I think that's council's direction. Let's have a roll call then on to A, B, D with the
One question
amendment.
before we move on. As far as the sign goes, do you want the sign to come back to council again for approval, or you want them to work with staff?
I'd like to see it again.
You like to see it? Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Mayor.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Sorry, with regard to the sign, is the question primarily about the size of the sign or anything else about the way that it's designed?
Speaking for myself, it's mainly the size.
So if it's the same, because the sign is part of the design of this project. So if it's the same sign on a smaller version, I don't know why it has to come back. Because if you want to,
They're smaller and then they're smaller.
I understand that. I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
to
some
be
of it is the spacing of
proportionate,
the fins, too.
to be,
Has to be.
proportionate to the building size. I mean, the top floor and
Yep.
everything else. But I mean, let's bear in mind that this is a small project. It's not a very large. It's 30,000 square feet. So.
So this comes before us again anyway, will it not? This is it, final approval.
I have no problem with the size of the sign, by the way.
I mean, if I might just interject, I think there is different renditions and different views. I think when you see it here, it's different when you see it there, and we haven't completely finalized. But the intention of the sign was to somehow that the letters will merge with what's already a kind of pretty irregular pattern of this. So it's not meant to be seen all the time and all the way.
And the sign is behind the fins, right?
Exactly. The sign is basically produced as a kind of absence of things in some case. So it's a bit of a shadow effect.
Yeah, in the location where the letters would appear, the fins would be shallower.
And this sign is based on our code. They can have a sign that size. Am I correct?
Well, upon approval. I mean, it's.
No. I mean, just sometimes,
It sounds like it doesn't meet the code, and that's why you're here. That's why you're here, considering a creative sign.
So if it doesn't meet the code, sorry?
The creative sign is just that. It actually lets you create. There isn't any particular standard. There are some findings that are in your staff report. Contextual criteria, design quality, some of those things. But really, it's a little bit of freeform. And so if it needs to be smaller. If it shouldn't reflect something, then that's what we're looking for.
Well, I mean, a little small is okay, but I don't want to change the whole design of the sign because.
Well,
Mr. Quinn.
Can I-
Well, if it's 8 by 40, I mean, that's one big sign, especially at night. During the day, I think it'll kind of blend in. At night is when I think it's really going to stand out. I mean, I'd be happy with 6 by 10 or just a smaller, you've got the name, but it's not the prominent feature, especially at night.
My question is, when you were designing this project and this building, did you take the proportion of the building into consideration when you designed the sign? I'm assuming that you did. Did you?
Yes, we did. I think it was just. I mean, we considered at some point just putting the letters, and they were smaller, but we just hated the idea of like putting letters of it. So we thought about what if, given the irregularity of the things, we can actually make it be part of that. But the things, back to your earlier question, they're 1 feet and they're spaced in different intervals. So in order to actually make the sign be part of that, we needed a certain size of the sign to be able for the things to be able to make that. I mean, even though we're using a much more dense pattern up here. So I mean, to answer the question, we could review this. Certainly, If it's going to be part of the facade, I don't think a smaller or too small of a sign will work. We will have to somehow reconsider
It will not
entirely,
work
but,
because bear in mind, this is on the 5th floor. And what you see from the 1st floor on the 5th floor is not the 8-foot eye level view of it. I'm okay with it. I mean, I would leave it up to the applicant to work with the staff and make the necessary adjustments. I don't want it to come back, to be honest with you.
I mean, we have multinational corporations in this city with signage 200 feet above ground level that have much more modest signs than that.
Right.
I mean, that's my point. At this
Okay.
point. If this was a much larger building, that's another story. Don't get any ideas. Rodney Khan and Simarustis, that's our next item.
Okay.
I mean, I just want to tone down. Can we give staff authority, discretion to work with them on that?
That's part of my motion.
So I'm asking staff,
Sure.
is that something that you're comfortable with?
Yeah.
Who's
just
our
to-
sign person?
Just to put it.
Bradley?
To put it into context, were this not a creative sign and they just wanted to put a regular sign up, that would be within the limits of the sign we would allow. This is incorporated into the design, so it becomes a creative sign. If that helps with context.
Who's our sign person?
Well,
Mr. Calvert, it's the.
Do you feel comfortable working with them? Do you get the general sense of what we're saying?
Yes, we do.
Doesn't
We
have to
have-
come back to council.
We do have an idea of what you're looking for, and we can work with them to make that a little more
We're putting our
modest.
trust in you then for that. So that's, so you'd like to move, well,
let's just make sure it's in proportion, that it doesn't end up.
so you'd like to move to C with the direction that staff work with
Yeah, that was my original.
the architect to, I'm just restating it.
Oh, yes.
I'm just restating it for the record, to come up with something suitable, taking into account the comments by council. So is there a second to that?
I'm not saying, no.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
There was two different motions on the floor at the same time. There was the motion
You're
to
not
approve
seconding it?
items 1, 2, and 4.
Right. So we're adding.
So if you want to
We're
add it,
throwing that
okay.
into the four, so we'll have 4 on the floor.
And for the record, item 4 will have as amended by the language that Ms. Toledo provided in her presentation concerning the
The
instrument.
covenant.
Subject
Yes.
to
Preliminary title report.
Right.
Ownership.
Pulling building permit.
Okay, I will second the motion at 2C, the creative sign. Roll call.
Who was that motion by?
Is
Garbettian.
this just the creative sign, or is
This
it
is all 4.
All 4, okay.
Council members Agajanian, Arpetian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Devine,
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
I want to, if I make one quick comment, Mr. Mayor, regarding this project, I want to congratulate Dr. Janian as well. He provided much-needed medical services for years for people who are disadvantaged, and if they don't have any money, they won't be rejected. So they have several places, and what they do is a humanitarian effort that they do in the city, and they've done a great job. I want to thank them and congratulate them as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And it's not just this city, it's
Many
other
different
cities
yes, many
throughout the
different
western
cities.
states.
Yeah, and services they provide is for more disadvantaged people.
No, Dr. Jordan is not here. We wish him well. I understand he's not doing very well at the moment, but we wish him the very best. Next item, please.
3 is Director of Community Development regarding 620 North Brand Boulevard and 625 North Maryland Avenue, Stage 1, design review, case number PDR 1729008. 3 is a motion approving Stage 1 design.
Let's pause for a moment and invite, oh, there he is. How are you, Councilman? We're going to take a point of preference and take a short 3-minute recess.
Oh.
Welcome back. We are now back in session for the Glendale City Council special meeting of January 21st. We were on item 3, having been read into the record by the city clerk. Let's go to Ms. Beers.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, we're going to go directly to Ms. Zemetitis, Principal Planner for Community Development.
Good afternoon, Mayor Najarian, council members. The project before you is being presented as a conceptual project, unlike the previous one just heard moments ago for Stage 1 and Stage 2. So again, this is for a preliminary design review, the focus of which is on mass and scale and the site plan. Note that all architectural details, the details regarding the open space and the environmental review will be prepared and presented to you as part of the Stage 2 final review. So that is not being presented to you at today's meeting. The project itself consists of the preservation and maintenance of the existing bank commercial building on the northwest corner of Brand, right just south of the 134 freeway, the demolition of the existing 2-level parking garage and a smaller commercial building that is fronting on Maryland Avenue, and the construction of a new 350-foot tall 348-unit multifamily residential development. It will include the replacement parking for the bank building as well as new parking for the residential component. And the project itself includes 5% very low affordable housing, which would be equivalent to 18 units on site, and they will be paying the in lieu fee for the balance of the required inclusionary housing. Note that the lot itself has frontage on both Brand and Maryland Avenue. It's located in the Downtown Specific Plan Gateway District, which allows by right up to 275 feet and an FAR of 7.25. Through the Community Benefit Program, they can go up to 380 feet in height and 7.5 FAR. And note that this project is under the new Downtown Specific Plan standards that were adopted by you of March of last year. And so there are no story requirements or limits in this case. And we'll note here also the photographic context. The neighborhood to the east is the high-density residential R1250 standards. But again, this is located in the Downtown Specific Plan, which essentially is the high-rise district within the DSP. Projects.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
Mr.
Councilman.
Let's go back to the previous picture, please.
I'm going. This is not going
You want me to?
back, if you don't mind. One more, please? And one more.
One more?
Yes.
Okay. You see that small red rectangular? Isn't this property entire, we have entire property?
Yes.
And then what it means that, what's inside that smaller rectangular?
The smaller rectangle refers to the 2-story commercial building that has an address at 625 North Maryland Avenue.
And part of this project?
It is part of this project. That is the small commercial building that will be demolished.
Okay.
So it is
Will be
part of the project
demolished.
site.
So will be part of entire property then?
Correct. It's under one common ownership.
All right.
You'll note here the project site located in the DSP directly adjacent to the freeway on-ramp off Brand Boulevard. It is located the neighborhood context of surrounding high-rise office buildings, commercial buildings, and the residential neighborhood to the east. The existing site plan consists of that 6-story mid-century commercial bank building, previously Home Savings and Loan, and that will be maintained as noted by the hatched out rectangle. The existing parking garage and commercial building on Maryland will be demolished and essentially replaced by the newer building. You'll note here in blue the highlighted Home Savings and Loan Bank that's to be preserved. On Brand Boulevard, Brand Boulevard is considered a primary frontage street, so it must comply with the streetscape standards set forth for Brand Boulevard. Maryland to the east is identified in the DSP as a mixed-use residential street, so it has to comply with the additional setback standards in the DSP. So this particular project meets those standards, which would include an additional 5-foot parkway, an 8-foot sidewalk, and a 3-foot building adjacent zone. You'll note that the building stretches essentially from the north to the south along Maryland Avenue. There is vehicular access off of Maryland Avenue only. And you have a very generous open space, which I will be describing in a later slide, located along Brand Boulevard between the street and the building itself. Noted Brand Boulevard, you'll note that the open space is a rather significant setback from Brand Boulevard. So you will also have activated storefront lobby systems and glazing, but the primary view from Brand Boulevard will remain the existing bank building and then now the additional publicly accessible open space. Streetscape along Maryland Avenue will again have the building set back slightly. It'll have human-scaled materials, awnings, and the required landscaping along Maryland Avenue. The building directly to the east across this particular project is a 3-story parking garage, and it is also zoned Gateway District. So the lot across from it would be able to also be redeveloped per the Gateway standards. 3 levels of subterranean parking are proposed and 8 levels of above-grade parking with a total of 621 parking spaces. That
8 or 9. 8 or 9.
It would be within 9 levels. The first level is solely lobby area, but the true form would be 8 levels of parking garage. So it would be up to the 9th level. The first level is solely the driveway and the lobby area. The total of 621 spaces includes replacement parking for the bank building, which would essentially be 96 spaces, and then 499 spaces for the residential use. And the project itself is 26 spaces above what is required by code. You'll note levels 3 to 5, in terms of a floor plan, you'll have the interior parking garage that's wrapped by residential uses on both Maryland and fronting Brand. So the parking garage will never be visible from the 2 public streets. It will be visible from the 134 freeway where, as part of the design, it's exposed to the freeway, and it includes fins that would somewhat mimic and harken back to the adjacent commercial bank building. On level 10, you'll note that there is a substantial common open space area, approximately 21,000. As a residential project, this proposal must include 140 square feet of open space per unit. So at 348 units, that's a very substantial size of approximately 48,000 square feet of common open space. And that does not include the publicly accessible open space. Levels 11 through 17 are then, as a high-rise project, are pushed in and it goes up, but it's not the typical rectangular building form that you would see in a high-rise residential. It's actually a curved in 2 separate locations, and it stretches across the lot. Continue on with the additional outdoor decks. The building then sort of is broken into various building forms and topped by a rooftop deck with outdoor open space and common amenities and the mechanical equipment room. And again, this rooftop deck has 14,000 square feet of that approximately 48,000 square foot common open space. Per the DSP, this building is under the DSP tall building standards, so these standards apply. It is 350 feet, which is below the 380-foot maximum. The building is set back 20 feet on Maryland Avenue for where the building rises out of the ground 60 feet, so it is set back the required 20-foot setback. The building floor plates are reduced in size by 15% in compliance with the DSP taller building standards. The building is narrow. It provides the additional views north to the Verdugo, and it's a sculptural building form as well. You'll note that along the east, and I believe that as the building terraces down, it actually steps down to the adjacent neighboring high-rise residential neighborhood. So there is a definite contextual compliance with and compatibility to the adjacent projects. You'll note these photographs, it's somewhat difficult to take a look at the sculptural building form in the elevation drawing, so I'd like to point out the actual perspectives that were provided by the architect, and you'll notice how you have the curvilinear form both on Brand Boulevard that's visible, as well as the elevations on the east that you would see driving west along the 134 freeway. This particular project is the very first residential project to utilize the newly adopted tiered community benefit system. So there were previous projects that had used the community benefit systems as hotels to obtain additional FAR and height. This is the first of its kind that actually harkens back to what council approved last March, which would mean to have additional publicly accessible open space well above and beyond what's required by the DSP. That would include the diversity in housing mix, which would be a minimum 40% of 2 and 3 bedroom units. And then also to provide additional mobility improvements. And those mobility improvements are from a formula, so those specific details will be brought to you for stage 2 review. But the project itself is meeting that tiered system as a tier 3 because they are providing not only the 10% required publicly accessible open space on Brand, they're providing also that additional 2% required for tier 3 projects, but they are going above and beyond and providing actually 15% of the site area for publicly accessible open space. As such, they are, as a tier 3 project, they are entitled to the maximum FAR and height standards in the Gateway District, which in this case is 380 feet and 7.5 FAR. The proposal before you complies with is lower than the by right, which is at this point in time proposed at 7.1 FAR, but they are requesting the additional height, and this building is proposed at 350 feet in height, and this is due to the Tier 3 Community Benefits Program. This slide particularly points out the additional publicly accessible open space. As required for the public benefit, you would need to provide 12% of the lot, which would be essentially 7,700 square feet. They are proposing a substantial open space within the plaza and a small sliver of portion along Brand Boulevard. In total, this would be 9,800 square feet, approximately 15%. The details of this open space are going to be provided as part of the Stage 2 design review, but you do have in your packet a conceptual plan that includes significant landscaping, that includes also trees, a water feature, and additional details as well. If you were to combine all the area around the existing building, that common open space would total approximately 17,000 square feet. So that is well above and beyond what is required by code. And this is basically in keeping that existing and preserving that existing bank building and then providing their additional substantial publicly accessible open space to activate and create relief along Brand Boulevard. With that said, the proposal, as pointed out, complies with the new DSP standards for taller buildings, including the Community Benefits Program as a Tier 3 project. and staff recommends that City Council approve the Stage 1 conceptual design review for this particular project. I'm available if you have any other additional questions.
Ms. Devine?
I have a question about the parking spaces.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I have a question about the parking spaces in the Chase parking lot that they're getting rid of.
Yes.
How many spaces were in that parking lot?
The parking garage itself was built under the previous code, and which included for the commercial. I don't recall I would be able to take a look at my notes. There were around 150 parking spaces, but they are only required to provide what is per today's code for the commercial building, and the existing bank building would only require 96 spaces based on 2 spaces per 1,000 square feet of commercial office.
So the parking for Chase Bank, it's a bank, right, is going from 150 spaces today to 97 in the new building.
Correct. The building was built on different parking ratios previously, so the current DSP ratios would result in a parking requirement of 96 spaces.
So what happens if there are more? How many employees are there at Chase? I mean, what happens if there are more than, there aren't enough spaces for them in this building?
Our code is written in such a way that it would essentially provide for both visitors and employees. So based on the ratio, it would be 2 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet. So any new DSP project with a commercial component would be at that parking ratio, assuming that it would meet that parking demand.
Okay. Seems to be a problem. Okay.
Mr. Garbettian?
Just one quick question. How many compact spaces do we have?
We have 0. The Glendale zoning code does not allow for compact spaces.
And what are the Cs that indicate in the? I don't know, maybe I'm reading it wrong.
Those are commercial spaces. Thank you.
Commercial spaces. Okay. Thank
So
you.
those would be the commercial versus the residential parking.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions before I go to the speakers? Let's go to the speakers. We'll hear a little bit more about the project, and then we can follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vilia. Rodney Kahn?
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, and City staff. My name is Rodney Kahn. My offices are located at 1111 North Brand Boulevard, here in the city of Glendale. Ralph and Larry Cimarusti have owned this property for the last 25 years. The brothers were born and raised in Glendale. They own small businesses here, and they are looking to build this building for their children and their grandchildren. As staff mentioned, this is a community benefit project that requires no variances. As a result of our project, we're doing a few things. One is we're improving traffic at one of the city's busiest intersections, which is Brand Boulevard and the 134 freeway on-ramp. We are doing that by eliminating the driveways and the traffic entering the site and exiting the site on Brand Boulevard, as it currently does. All the access for our site will enter and exit off of Maryland Avenue. This accomplishes 2 things. One, it will improve the traffic flow and the circulation on Brand Boulevard, especially during the peak traffic times. The second thing it accomplishes, it provides the large, unobstructed open space, the public open space on Brand Boulevard. The last item I'd like to highlight before we have the architect go through the design is the affordable housing. And I know Ms. Zematitis mentioned that we have 18 very low income units, and we will either pay an additional $15 million in terms of the in lieu fee, or our preference is to actually build the affordable housing, and we are looking at securing properties off-site to either rehabilitate or build there, which we think we can do and make that come online quicker. So those options for affordable housing are available. I'll conclude my remarks and turn it over to our architect, John Friedman, who will walk you through the project. Thank you.
One quick question.
Mr. Garbettian?
You mentioned that this project will improve the traffic on that intersection?
At the intersection of Brand and the 134 freeway on-ramp, yes.
By adding 380, how many units do we have here?
348.
348, I was mixing them up. By adding 348 units and keeping the bank building, how would it improve the traffic flow?
Because you wouldn't have traffic coming in and exiting off of Brand.
But,
Okay, thank you.
but what
Ms.
you would
Devine?
have is all of that traffic going on Maryland, which is a smaller street.
You will have more trips on Maryland, that is correct. But in terms of the freeway on-ramp, which that's a very congested intersection, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
More questions?
One
Go
other
ahead,
question.
Mr. Carpenter.
This is a hypothetical question. So the occupants of this new building, 348 units, if they want to get on the freeway, they still have to use the same on-ramp or get off the freeway, same on-ramp and off-ramp, right? Am I correct?
They would use the same on-run, and yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
John Friedman?
So good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council, staff. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I'm a partner in John Friedman Kim Architects, and I don't live in Glendale, but I actually live right across the highway in Silver Lake. So with my wife and 3 children, 2 of them went to the Glendale Montessori and Doran. A couple of them, let's see, oops, where's our, I'm sorry. So, oops, they participated in the Nutcracker at the Alex Theater. So we've actually gotten to know Glendale fairly well, both of its historical architecture, such as the train station, the Alex Theater, of course, and as well, and we've enjoyed the fountain and the lawn at the Americana, and we've gotten to know the very fine mid-century architecture in the city. One of the buildings of which we're inside right now, actually it's one of my favorites, as well as the Chase building, which is of course on the site of the in question. So when Ralph and Larry Cimarusi asked us to kind of work on this project, we kind of jumped at the chance really to work on this site, which is on Brand Boulevard, of course, the most well-known city or avenue in Glendale, at the intersection of the 134. It was a perfect place to create a kind of new landmark or gateway into the city. And as Vilya mentioned, it's already sort of amidst a number of other tall buildings, so that made sense to us. When we look at the plan, coming back to what Vilya showed, again you have, let's see, is one of these a pointer? Yes. So basically, here's our site in general. This is Brand, the 134 freeways here. The first decision we made, of course, was to maintain the Chase building, formerly the architecturally significant Home Savings and Loan, which is really part of the history of the city. So that was a no-brainer that we were going to keep that. And with that idea, the area that was left that was big enough for an adequate building to build was sort of in the back. And as you'll note, there's kind of this notch in the site, which allows more space there. And the great thing about that was that it provided this space between the Chase building and the U.S. Bank building, where right off the sidewalk you had space for a new publicly accessible park. I mean, and as you well know from being residents, that we need more community outdoor space in the city. So that's this space here. I also want to note that it's a housing building, as you know, and the lobby is here. So there will be direct pedestrian access from this new park area as well as from Maryland. And then this lobby will be a very kind of transparent piece that you can kind of see through. So we're interested in how pedestrians will travel through the building, through the site, also on the side of the site, and actually through another kind of pocket, a part of the area that will contribute to the pocket park. And also, we have a fountain that begins all the way at Brand and will extend as a water element through the lobby and out the side at the back at Maryland, and you'll see that as well. So those are all kind of important features of the site planning, where we're trying to create a very active zone. I'll just skip through this quickly because, as Vilya mentioned, when you kind of add up all the publicly accessible space in here, it's going to add up to about 17,000 square feet. So it's going to be a good amount of space for tenants of the building and tenants of the commercial buildings that are nearby. So Vilya showed this before too. I mean, this is a view towards from Brand into that space where you see the lobby beyond. And again, taking kind of cues from the very successful public space in Americana, we have lawn space, we have hardscape with benches, and then we have this fountain. And I also make the point here that it's all completely publicly accessible. Again, there's no fences or sort of barriers to move through. And you can see getting closer into that park, again, you get the idea of how, for instance, the fountain will kind of, we can imagine it continuing through this glazed lobby and the amount of open space. And because this is just stage one, again, there will be further development of this area, and I can imagine it filled with furniture and tables and chairs for people to use at kind of all times, day and night. And then even sort of looking, if you're underneath, if you come out the lobby of our building, you can see back out towards Brand, and again, see how open the park will be towards Brand Boulevard. Just also wanted to say, I mentioned about the pedestrian access before. The cars, the vehicles will be entering from the north side, and some of them will go down into the 3 stories of parking below grade that Vilya showed, and then the other ones will be going up into a floor that actually has parking in the middle and is surrounded by units. So from the public streets, not the highway, you will see from the highway, but from Brand and Maryland, you won't see any of the parking. And to make this more clear, what the section shows is, yes, it's a 32-story building plus a penthouse with a photovoltaic array up at the top for power. And starting from the amenities on the roof, which I'll come back to, we have the building shaft, and then the building widens out. Notice how it's stepping down towards Maryland to respect the kind of residential scale there. And then we get to that area where the units are surrounding the parking, the lobby, and then the 3 floors of basement. I think it would be a nice alternative for the residents of Glendale to be able to rent a space in this building and take advantage of the views of the mountains and downtown and all the kind of great amenities we have in this area. I'll also just note that the floor-to-floor is always 10'6", except for in 2 places. The lobby is higher right here. That's 14 feet for obvious reasons, I think, a nice lobby. And then the first basement is 11'6" for the ADA parking that would be required. Just also want to note that we have many kinds of units, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. They're nicely sized for families, and of course, per the requirements, we have 40% are 2 and 3 bedroom. I mentioned Villy showed this before, but on the 10th floor, where before the building narrows into the sort of the kind of main shaft, we have this generous areas for swimming pool and spa, playground for the kids, and as well as interior areas for a gym and community events or events that the tenants would like to have, and it can either be kind of 3 smaller rooms or opened up into something larger. And then likewise, the roof, as mentioned, has another, let's see, 14,000 square feet of seating and barbecue and fire pits and even a dog run. And then above that, there's trees around the side, and yet above that, there's a about 3,000 square foot of photovoltaic cells up at the top. So here's the view at nighttime, and again, we're at the intersection of Brand, and we're on Brand, on the bridge, where the freeway, freeway underneath. So it could be a really, we imagine as kind of a lantern that creates a real kind of gateway into the city. In the daytime, I think here what you can see is, again, we're acknowledging the importance of the Chase building, or it is acknowledged. It's still there. It's front and center at the corner, and then our building sits behind that. Also, we're trying to use different of the kind of architectural qualities and details of the building, including the kind of the colors palettes are neutral, the scale of the windows, the use of vertical louvers, and such. Note also that one of the the sort of main facade here, the narrow end kind of faces due north to the mountains over the freeway. This one is on axis with a new park, and then there's another one facing due east over Maryland, which you'll see in another rendering. This is stage one, so I just want to mention that. Well, we worked closely with staff actually, and I think the idea was that these three volumes that were kind of stacked up kind of broke down the height of the building, and that the curves also softened it. But we can also look at other ideas, introducing color, removing curves, things like that, and these things might occur, in the next stage, or would appropriately occur in the next stage. And then, but actually going back to the sort of design that you have in your packets, looking from Louise on the bridge over the 134, you can again see that on that side, the building kind of steps down towards Maryland. And again, this is the sort of one piece that also kind of begins to turn. As Villia noted, it's a kind of sculptural form, again, to sort of break down the mass and to address different important parts of the city. And then finally, the last one I'm going to show you is this one, which you actually see then again on Brand Lower. I'm sorry, on Maryland. This is where the water would kind of emerge, the fountain would emerge on Maryland. You can see the ideas, the attempt to sort of break down the scale of the building again through kind of louvers, creating more depth with the balconies, and the sort of texture. It's a building less of bigger moves and more of texture. So we would imagine, these the panels would be most likely metal panels, different tones of white and grays, unless we actually then sort of switch the colors and things like that. So that is my presentation.
Thank you. Grant Michaels?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. My name is Grant Michaels. I'm the President of the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council. In reviewing the staff report of this project, one phrase really caught my attention, and that was the by right density bonus concession. I came here to learn more about this, and I'm concerned that these issues have been essentially put off to stage 2 of the conceptual design. The Homeowners Coordinating Council, the neighborhoods, have filed 2 successful appeals in opposing excessive concessions and bonuses. Having the project go forward past stage 1 without these being addressed is a concern, because at this point, with stage 1 completed, many of those decisions are already made, such as where the parking is located, the type of unit mix, the amenities, the density, and I was looking to be able to have something more substantive to say, but at this point, I just can't. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other cards on this item. If anyone would like to address council, please fill out your card now. This will be the last card I take on it. Sir, you're up next. Charles Sales.
Mayor, city councilman, persons. I am Charles Sales. I live at 222 Monterey Road, which is across the freeway from this construction. We live in a high-rise building with 88 units. This will have about 4 or 5 times that many units in it. And my concern is just what size of that units are those units and how many bedrooms they have. Because my quick look at it, 600 and however many parking spaces there are there might not be able to accommodate those units unless most of them were one bedroom. Because as a rule of thumb, you need about a parking space per bedroom, and I don't know that this has it, and I'm gonna get concerned that because of it will impact the parking on the streets around in the neighborhood. Monterey Road is a considerably wider street than Maryland. I know because I do my runs, and I run from Monterey around Maryland, Brand, and back. And Maryland is, relatively speaking, sort of a narrower street. And now you're going to have a lot of parking coming out onto Maryland, and I think it might tend to be congested. But what I would like to know is just how many bedrooms there are and what is the ratio of bedrooms to parking spaces. My sense is that it's kind of low and not what one expects, unless you've got pretty small units there. Those were my questions.
Okay, thank you. Can staff answer that question quickly? I think it's in our report. We'll take one more speaker, and then you can look that up while we're... Katie Gazarian.
Thank you so much. My name is Katie Gazarian. I'm resident of Glendale. And my concern is just, I'll be quick, that with this tall building and with all these people, residing in this building, my concern is the traffic. It's already that exit, Glendale exit, is so crowded, and it's really, makes me feel, when I heard about that building, that how are we going to, deal with the traffic is my concern, that it will be really crowded, busy going, through and that's the only exit to go east and west. That's what my concern is.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lilia?
Mayor Najarian and council members, the project has a total of 348 residential units. There are 209 one-bedroom units, and there is a parking requirement of 1 space for every 1-bedroom unit. There are 234 two-bedroom units and 44 three-bedroom units. And both 2- and 3-bedroom units have a parking requirement of 2 spaces per unit.
That's our code?
That would be our code.
So even 3 bedrooms only have, even 3 bedrooms only have a 2?
In the downtown specific plan, yes. In all other multifamily residential zones, there is a different parking requirement. So it would be 2.5 in multifamily. But in the DSP, parking ratios are 1 for 1 for 1-bedrooms and 2 parking spaces for every 2- and 3-bedroom units.
Okay, since we are on
Mr.
this
Agajin.
subject, so how about the bank? It says here 4 stalls per 1,000 gross, probably square foot. I don't know why gross is there, but
When it comes to banks, it's a little bit different because commercial professional office uses have a parking requirement of 2 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet. When it comes to banks, they look at the customer service area, such as the lobby or the area for the tellers, at a ratio which would be equivalent to personal service or retail, which would be a 4 per thousand requirement. So you have to take a look at the actual floor plan of the bank to determine what that parking requirement would be. So based on the existing Chase Bank and office building, the parking was determined to have a requirement of 96 parking spaces. And to go back to...
On what basis? I'm sorry. How it comes to 96?
So
the square footage is 45,125 square foot, right? The
correct.
It
Correct.
says here. I don't
So-
know if it's...
Yes.
Yeah.
They are providing 96 parking spaces.
No, that's what
And
I
so-
have a problem with, because 96 means 2 per 1,000 square feet.
That is correct. And they only have
Here, the bank area needs 4 per 1,000 square feet. Where that calculation goes, because
Mr. Agajanian, the bank won't be 45,000. I know it says existing bank. They mean the bank building is 45,000.
okay,
That will
what's
be
the
split
area
up
of the bank?
in the general office. The bank itself will be much smaller.
How much? Still will be, if you consider 4 per 1,000, it shouldn't be 90.
Correct. And they essentially have a smaller customer service area that only has a requirement for an additional, I believe it's 1,000 to 2,000 square feet of customer service area for the bank itself. So only that particular area is parked at a ratio of 4 per thousand. The rest of the entire bank building, what we call the bank building, which is essentially a commercial building, you don't have a customer service area for the banks on the upper floors above the first floor.
I agree with that, but now, see, I have problem with the way you guys are defining this. I understand the higher levels, so there are offices, people, they go to the offices to do their business, I guess, bank business. But on the lower level, where the bank is, and you guys wrote even here that you need 4 stalls per 1,000 square feet. And then I have problem with, now we are defining portion of it is public access area, the other area is different area. Where does it write somewhere, this definition?
Yes, our zoning code specifically calls out banks and specifically states, I would have to look it up, but it specifically states that any private office area or the area behind the teller other than customer service area would be parked at a ratio of 2 per thousand. So I'd be more than happy to get you the exact wording if you would like from our zoning code as well. So this calculation was based on their zoning code standards. And
I
to
mean,
go
we
back,
did that calculation or they did the calculation? That's what I'm trying to.
this calculation is based on the dimensions that we were given.
Dimension, you separated that
Correct.
customer service area and you say we need this much.
Correct.
Okay, I want to see that if it's
Of course.
possible. Thank you.
I'd be more than happy to provide that.
Okay. Any more questions?
I do have a couple of questions.
Mr. Garbett?
Yes. Page 16, when you say residential development open space required, 140 square feet, is it required per unit? Is it a private open space, or it's you combine them all and say this is 40,000, 49,000 square feet that they have to provide?
The requirement of 140 square feet per unit per the DSP can be in the form of private open space, which would be balconies, which some of these units have balconies, can be in the form of common open space, which is essentially for the use of the actual residents, such as on decks levels 10 and I believe the rooftop deck. Or it can also be any area that is on the ground floor, that's common open space that is above and beyond. We cannot double dip, but it can be above and beyond what is on the ground level as well.
Because
So it is a combination.
Got it. So it's not like RR 1250 that every unit has to have, I don't know, 100 square foot of private open space for every unit, like a balcony for every unit. It's not mandatory.
Correct. Councilmember Garpetti, what you're referring to only applies to the multifamily residential zones,
Got it.
which
So I want to ask you a question. Where am I? Level 6. Right. Level 6 has very nice open spaces, private open space, it says, and that is about 6,000. See, one other thing I want to ask for the future projects is this index of the number of units, the size of the units, the unit mix, and everything to be maybe in 2 pages next to each other, so you don't have to go back and forth on open space, parking, because they are all in different areas, and we can find them, but it takes a little bit longer time. Here on the same page,
this would be on page
16.
15?
Page 16, it says level 6, 6,300 square feet. My packet says level 6. I mean 16, page 16.
Yes.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. Am I correct? No, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 units here. They have almost. I just want to understand that I'm reading this right. So there's 4 units, which is on page 25, which is level 6.
Yes.
The 4 units have 6,000 square foot of open space, 6,309 square feet of open space.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
Those units are required to be set back by their DSP standards, a minimum of 20 feet from Maryland Avenue. And because of the lack of accessibility to those open space areas from the circular interior form of the building, they are now private open spaces and very generous private open spaces. But that is consistent with the DSP standards.
I understand that. So basically 15% or maybe 12% of the open space that's provided is given to these 4 units here, basically, because we had to set back the building. It's a good use of that open space. I understand. And can you tell me how many of these units have balconies?
I would look to the architect to provide that information.
And what are the size of those balconies? Because I can't read it. These are too small. I mean, I've
Correct.
seen some of them. It says here 499 square feet on level 3, 499. Level 3 to 5, they all have 499 square foot of open space. I believe that would be part of the private open spaces. I can see a little open space that has a door.
Yes.
I believe those are the balconies. Am I correct?
Yes, and those, majority of those units, what we consider the podium, the first lower 9 levels of the project, especially those fronting Maryland, do have those private balconies, as Councilmember Garpetian just referenced. All of those balconies exceed, I know that you probably are thinking of our multifamily residential standards, which require private open space, 40 square feet, minimum 44 feet in width. All of these exceed those standards.
So I'm trying to do a little math here before you get those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. They have balconies level 3 to 5. So that's almost 18 units that I can see they have balconies. Okay, if you can find the number of units that they have balconies, I would really appreciate it.
We can double check and see.
Okay. Are you?
Yeah, I'm done with my questions, and I have more questions I reserve the right to ask.
Any other
Okay.
questions?
Well, who has questions?
Oh, and to go back to Councilmember Agajanian's question, I have the zoning code in front of me, and it says banks and financial institutions based on Chapter 30.32 of our zoning code for parking, 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet of financial customer service area, plus 2.7 per 1,000 square feet of office floor area, which office floor area in the DSP has a parking requirement of 2 spaces for every 1,000 square feet in the DSP zone.
Basically, in our DSP, the parking requirements are less than other zones. And just to go back on residential parking spaces, for every other zone, from R1250 all the way down to R3050, we have one guest parking for every 4 units of for one guest parking for every 4 units versus DSP that we have one guest parking for every 10 units. Am I correct?
That is correct for multifamily in the DSP.
Okay. Right.
I would like to also point out, just not to continue on the same train of thought, but the 45,000 square foot commercial building, that is in total of gross floor area. Our parking requirements are based on, not on gross floor area, but it would be the actual buildable area within the tenant areas. And so that would actually cut down on the overall square footage that's used for calculating the parking requirement.
Okay.
So that is not expressed.
I have a couple.
Ms. Devine?
If I may, thank you, thank you. Do we have a cap or a limit on the number of levels of parking that we can give as, I guess these are concessions? This is a concession?
We do not have a limit in our downtown specific plan or in our zoning code. The gentleman, one of the speakers, mentioned the density bonus and the concession. I believe Mr. Grant Michaels mentioned the density bonus and concession. This project is proposing to have above-grade parking for the residential project. Per our zoning code, residential projects require that all parking be either subterranean or semi-subterranean. That would include, there hasn't been a distinction made at this point in time, though staff has discussed it quite a bit internally, that we need to identify and clarify that, because in all other zones, or I should say in the DSP, if this was a commercial building, the parking can go 9 levels, 10 levels, 12 levels without any type of limit. Because this is a residential project, the parking by our zoning code is required to be semi-subterranean. So because they are providing very low affordable housing as part of the requested concession, which is not a variance, it is a requested concession, they are proposing to have above-grade parking. The project is providing 3 levels of subterranean garage space. There's a breakdown, I believe there's more parking subterranean than there are in the 8 levels of parking that are above grade.
So then to answer my question, another residential project could come in next week and ask for 10 levels above ground, above grade for parking, because we don't have there is no cap.
There is no cap. And if they requested that as a density bonus concession, then that would be under their purview. We do have a project that was the Altana project that was approved with a variance. This is the project on Central where they actually wrapped the parking garage, and that had to go through a variance process. They did not have an affordable housing component to that project.
So the difference between a variance and a concession is?
They are 2 different animals. A variance is a request for deviation from code where you have to meet the 4 required findings per state law as to why the project is unique. In terms of a density bonus concession, you're looking at the affordability of the project. And if they are requesting relief from code in order to provide those affordable units, there has to be provided a nexus to show that by granting the concession, or if the concession wasn't granted, that the affordable unit housing component project would not be able to be provided.
So this above-grade parking is then connected to the affordable housing?
Correct.
The 18 units.
The 18 units.
I have a question. You want to take a breath? You're getting bombarded by council.
Please, bring it on.
This project is subject to our inclusionary zoning ordinance,
Yes.
correct? With the housing.
Correct.
So that requires 15% of the units or an in lieu to be paid in
Yes.
general terms. So the 18 that they're providing would be counted anyway towards their inclusionary zoning, but it's by providing that 18, that's giving them the concessions that one of the concessions being this parking issue that we're talking about.
Yes.
So that seems, I thought we cleaned that up. That seems a little,
Yeah.
I mean, you understand that it seems as though that they're getting credit for something that we're requiring anyway as a requirement. So I guess you're saying that's just the way it is.
If I may, Mr. Najarian, the state density bonus requires, in this case, because they're doing very low income, 5%. The Glendale inclusionary ordinance requires 15%. That's where that in lieu payment of $15 million or other units comes in. So they are meeting both those tests. They're two different laws.
I see. Okay.
So if we, if we take out the very low affordable housing and have them pay an in lieu fee, we could get rid of that extra parking, those 9 floors or 8 floors, levels of parking?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, an applicant is entitled to apply for the benefits of SB 1818 and utilize whatever those tools are. So they will be applying, or maybe they have applied already for that SB 1818 waiver. And we'll be looking at that in the context of their application. But if they want to provide those units on site, we can't dictate to them that they pay the in lieu fee instead.
Well, Mr. Agajanian.
How much different or how much more it will cost if the parking would be, because they have this lot. So, and they are demolishing the old building, the bank building will stay. But why, I mean, how much cost-wise will be different if they would take the parking on ground level or underground level, entire area to become a parking in a few levels, I mean, down.
Okay, well, they are, Councilmember Agajanian, they are maintaining the existing bank building, or I'm going to rephrase that, the existing commercial building on site, and they are utilizing the entire rest of the site for 3 levels of subterranean garage. So are you requesting them to look into the cost for depressing it one more time for 4 levels?
Yes, entire level to eliminate parking to be over the ground, because this will become the tallest building in Glendale as far as, I think this will be the tallest building, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
So I would look to the
So how much would it cost? I guess the question is, how much would it cost to put 9 stories of subterranean parking?
I mean,
8 stories.
property to become parking, not, what I'm trying to say is, forget about the bank building. We have a lot here, so maybe this entire area to become a parking, underground parking, in 3, 4, 5 levels, and that will be equal to what we have over the ground.
Correct. As noted, and forgive me, I believe Mr. Calvert would like to add.
Mr. Mayor,
Bradley?
members of the City Council, in theory, that could potentially work, but ultimately they have not maxed out the total amount of FAR. So even if they were to take all of that parking above ground and then push it below grade, they could just basically fill that void with more apartments at that point. Either way, that void would end up being full, whether it's parking or whether it's additional apartments, because they are below the maximum FAR that they could achieve. In response to the comment about cost, typically an above grade space is about $10,000 per space. Below grade, depending on how much, it can be between $40,000 and $80,000. So we can come up with the back of an envelope.
$80,000
per space. Per space. Depends on how far below grade you're going. So
I do not agree with that.
It's close to that.
Mr. Mayor?
It's not exact. Let me go to Mr. Karpetian, then back to Ms. Devine.
So the justification of above-ground parking requirement is the SB 1818 that is providing 18 units. And this project basically is stating that if they don't have 9 floors or 8 floors of parking above ground, they cannot build that 18 units. Am I correct, Mr. City Attorney? Is that the justification of?
I would say that's the rationale under the state law, yeah.
Okay, so I got that. And also for staff, is this bank building a historic building? Is it registered as a historic building? Because we received a couple of letters from the Historical Society, and
Mr. Platt.
they were mentioning that this is a
The Home
historic.
Savings Building was identified in the South Glendale survey as a potential historic resource, locally eligible.
Potential
under
historic
CEQA,
resource.
we look at it as a potential resource. And we're going to ask that the development team prepare, or hire a consultant to prepare a report to look at the historic aspects of the building and then what the new building might do in terms of having any impact on that.
So if you don't have that, how can we approve a project if we don't have that report, basically?
Because you won't be approving or reviewing the environmental documentation for this project until stage 2, so you'll have that report as part of your stage 2 materials.
Okay.
And as I
Ms.
understand
Devine.
it, the garage is possibly historic. Is that correct?
Not in my opinion. It's not identified in the survey as a character-defining feature. The survey only focuses on the bank building itself. There may be others who disagree with that, but it's not part of the survey.
Okay.
Mr. Quintero.
Yeah, I have some comments. I mean, it's obvious that this property owner has brought this in under the new standards for the DSP, not old standards, under the new standards. The projects in the high-rise district, what we also call the gateway districts, there's tall buildings surrounding this project on brand, and I'm sure there's more to come. So I guess as I hear the different comments and questions, I mean, this DSP, I wasn't around, so I don't know exactly what was passed, but it's a new DSP. We now have a project that comes in, and there's concerns, all sorts of concerns. Why did that DSP pass to begin with? I mean, if you don't want housing in the downtown, why don't you downzone the entire downtown? We originally upzoned it many years ago because we downzoned all the multifamily neighborhoods in Glendale. We felt there was too much development going on north of Glen Oaks and South Glendale, narrow streets and huge buildings coming up, so we decided to concentrate the housing in the downtown where people can use public transportation, and as more public transportation comes online, they can move to different parts of the city. We also wanted to create a 24-hour city, or 14-hour, whatever it was. So 18 hours, all right. So, I mean, this is a project that conforms to the DSP. There might be some tweaking that we have to do. There's certainly some design elements that I'd like to see changed or sort of rearranged. But overall, at this point in the discussion, we're talking about mass and scale, and it conforms to the DSP. Then the affordable housing element, I'm happy that there's 18 very low units on site, but quite frankly, what attracts me is that this project could actually key affordable housing being built off-site. I would prefer for the developer not to, the property owners, to not pay the $15 million in lieu and to go ahead and find some location in Glendale, or 2 locations, and build affordable housing. That's all the city council talks about. Now we have an opportunity to build affordable housing and have this developer do it and have the project trigger the affordable housing. So there's certainly plenty of green space, fronting brand. There won't be an in and out of brand. It'll all go to Maryland. Maryland will be impacted, but for sure there's going to be an easier on-ramp situation for people getting on the 134. So at this point, I support the project. I just think that it falls within the guidelines, follows within the DSP. So if it doesn't, then I think following this project approval, then let's move to change the DSP, because obviously there seems to be enough concern here that the DSP isn't what the council's looking for.
Thank you. Other comments?
I still have to say, I have no problem with this project. The only problem I have, the parking being over the ground. And I'm looking at this, we have bank building, which is approximately, I think, the floor area is like 10,000 square feet of building. The balance will be 54,600 square feet of the balance of the land. And if they would do few levels underground parking, this building will not be that exposing and being highest building, so we're gonna have like 8 floor. I mean, right now, it will be a giant building sitting over the freeway, so at least will come a little bit lower. So that's what I thought, maybe if they would study it to see how much different or how much more money they have to spend. I mean, I can't take it that it's $10,000 over the ground parking cost for overground parking is $10,000. Underground, it depends. If you cut that and you want to go 8 floor lower, probably will be $80,000. But if you spread it on entire land except the bank building, then you don't have to go 8 floor low to the underground. It will be maybe 3 or 4 floor under the ground, and it's not going to cost that much more. I wish we could do some analysis and see how much different going to be. I don't want them to go through lots of hassle, but also I don't want to have a building, it's so giant building on the freeway, so that bothers me. That's the only concern that I have. I hope we would do a brief study about this parking issue. To be underground.
Mr. Quintero.
I'd like to have the project people say if they'd be interested in entertaining that or what.
So we're talking about a larger footprint.
Yeah.
Of a subterranean parking as opposed to directly under the building.
Right.
Mayor Najarian and Councilmember Agajanian, yes, I mean, we hear what you're saying. We're back there talking. The above-ground parking is not as efficient. If you look at it in terms of the circulation, there's a limited number on each floor, and then it's wrapped with units. So the circulation isn't great at all. What we would do is we would look at an additional subterranean level, so to go from 3 to 4. That would push down the building. We can't tell you right now by how much, but it would substantially lower it. And we're not looking to just fill it with units. We would have the same number of units. We'd be able to bring down the stories. It may not be 8 stories brought down, but it will be brought down in terms of the stories. We may end up with a small amount of parking above grade, but not as many as we have now.
Can I add something? By the way, if you get the parking in the basement, let's say, lower level, the cost to have that building will come down too. I mean, if you have, let's say, 30-story building rather than 38-story building, the cost will come down. Maybe it will be more to spend on the parking structure, but you will save on going that high. So that will adjust each other.
Okay, I'd like to move this along. My comments are, I'm sorry?
And mine.
Okay, well, I'd like to move this along. So I'll go to you guys, but let's get on with this. It's 5:15. We got a meeting at 6.
It's 5:15. Wow.
So.
Time flies when you have time, right?
Yep, it does. So, Mr. Garpetyan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me tell you what I like about this project. I like the open space that's facing the brand. I like the unit mix, the 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, and the private open space that is there, all the features and everything else. My concern with this project is that I think we are trying to squeeze too much on a smaller lot. I mean, total lot size is 64 or 65,000 square feet. But if you look at the site plan, where we're trying to build this building is 140 feet by 256 feet. Basically, that's the small calculation that I did, which is 35,000 square feet. And with the 7.5% or 8%, 8 times FAR, it is a lot less than what it's like 250,000 square foot building. The other issue is this 9-story or 8-story office building is 339,000 square feet. And that's a project all by itself. I mean, if you put a 9-story building, 340,000 square foot of parking space, that is a project all by itself. We're not trying to be, nobody's against building in downtown, but we want to have, we kept talking about, that's why we had a moratorium in. And this project is trying to use the DSP's incentives as well as the SB 1818 incentives. If they had a way of doing the parking garage, deal with the parking garage not to be above ground, this 18 units is just because of that. And I don't think we can justify an 8-story above ground parking garage, which is almost 340,000 square feet, for 18 units. We want to have affordable housing. Of course we do. Who doesn't? We've been pushing for this. But I think we are trying to push too much in a smaller space. And the bank building itself, I don't know if it's a historic building or not. I know the owners have the right to designate it or not, or register it or not. I don't know. I think we made a motion to pass an ordinance that the city can make a commercial building, register it as a historic building without the owner's consent. I remember something like that. But if that comes to play, that's going to be a different story. And one thing we did not talk about is the design of the project. We kept talking about something that will fit in that area to blend with the rest of the downtown. I don't think the design of this project is doing that. I know it's a different design. Maybe the intention was to make this something iconic. I understand that, but the design of the project is not. It's not blending with the rest of the downtown. It has nothing to do with anything that we have in downtown. I understand that the architects have a different view and vision, but my personal vision is something that will, the neighborhood compatibility, I think we're talking about it, is part of downtown as well. And when you have 50% of your parking a tandem, it's an issue because you're squeezing too much, even with 9-story building parking structure, or 3-story below, it's 11-story parking structure building, 50% of it is tandem. And that means that you really, I understand you kept this property for 25 years, and I really appreciate that. I don't want to come across, I don't want to be offensive, but this is true. And the circulation, by saying that because there is no access on Brand Boulevard, that bank is a very busy bank. I mean, you can calculate it any way you want as to how many people come in. A lot of people don't go to the tellers, but they go to the back offices and have a direct meeting with the employees of the bank. So by saying that this building or this project will reduce the traffic congestion there, I think that's not a right statement. There's 348 units, people plus the bank patrons and rest of the office building, they have to use Maryland to go around the block and access. This is going to back up the traffic on the side street and the Maryland as well. I believe. The open spaces, the private open space that could be divided into different areas. One floor has 6,000 square feet for 5 units, and the others have none. And one other question, are the windows operable or not? Or they're fixed windows? Someone tell me that.
That hasn't been decided.
Sorry?
That hasn't been decided yet.
That hasn't been decided.
They'll likely,
You're going to have to come forward.
we haven't gone that far yet, but there will likely be, every room will have some sort of operable window, likely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I said, again, we have to look at the historic part of this project as well, because the bank building is, I think, one of the iconic buildings we have on the corner, and it's visible from the freeway as well. And this, by adding 18 units and having 9-story, 340,000 square foot building above ground, I can't support that at this time.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Devine?
I'll be quick and fast. We've had so many comments from historic preservationists about this that I would kind of wish we could have had this meeting in the evening when people could have been here that could actually and possibly answer our questions or my questions about the garage being historic. I know Mr. Platt said it isn't, but there is a controversy, and want to make sure that we're not destroying any of our historic resources. I am concerned about the traffic on Maryland, and just as was pointed out before, if you come out on Maryland, and you want to get on the freeway, you still have to go around on Brandon. It's still going to be a mess, even more problematic. I agree with the parking concerns and the issues, not only the levels, but with the Chase Bank. There is also a question about the type of architecture on the bank. You called it modern. I'm sorry, what did you call it? I have someone mentioned it's corporate modern. What did you call it?
On
the
the
Chase. The Chase.
Oh, I just probably say it's mid-century modern.
Mid-century modern, corporate modern, and I agree that that this and this is not going to come as any surprise to those of you that were at the briefing meeting with me. That I just think the mass and the scale of this building is overwhelming. I don't feel that it meets our downtown specific plan, the new architecture. They've tried to convince me, but I'm still not convinced. To me, it's a box on top of a box on top of a box. And no matter how many curves you put on it, it still looks like 3 boxes and maybe even 4. And I agree that 8 levels of parking just is like another building. So I would request that this go back for redesign. I noticed that you were trying to tweak this. You had 3 different iterations in one of your slides, and it seemed like it was starting to go in the right direction. So I think if we don't approve this today, that you will come back with the design that actually does change this to a more interesting. We just approved in the last agenda item a beautiful building that was different levels and articulated, and it wasn't just boxes. It was just really interesting, and that's what I'd like to see here. And so I hope that you will take our advice and tweak the design. Thank you. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, any comments before the vote?
I just did quick calculation. So what I came to, if we, leave the bank building where it is, then the rest of the lot, if you want to make parking, you have approximately over 50,000 square feet of land that you can make subterranean parking. What you have with the 8 level of parking, I did quick calculation. I guess you need 100,000 square feet of parking over ground. If you have 50,000, so 2 level or 3 level subterranean will satisfy that. And your building will be cheaper to build because it's not going to be 32 floor high. So based on my calculation, even subterranean is a little bit more expensive than overground parking, but that will satisfy when you save on, rather than have 32 floor high, you would have 24. So it will compensate each other. If you use entire subterranean, entire land, except the bank building. So with 2 or 3 floor high, you will satisfy the parking requirement. You don't need to go all the way high, in my opinion, anyway. I don't have problem with the project. It's just that the way it has been presented, I have problem with. Thank you.
So my thoughts are, clearly, the height of this building is what has touched a nerve, I think, with council. It is a hugely visible building at 35 stories. It's dwarfing even our existing tallest buildings on Brand, which are 22 stories high. So it's 50% taller than that. That's something I just can't wrap my head around. Unfortunately, it is permitted under our DSP guidelines. And I mean, at this point, I'm kicking myself. I don't know how we got in this situation. I don't think we ever envisioned a building anywhere near this height being permitted according to our new DSP guidelines. We were focused on open space and articulation, but something that tall is something that just slipped by. I'm very concerned about the traffic that it's going to generate. We're going to get a better look at that when the traffic studies are done. I know that the traffic that's going to be waiting to enter Brand from Doran is going to be just a queue that's going to be very long. There's turn restrictions from Doran onto Brand if you're going to get on the freeway. And I think it's going to be terrible. But what can I do? I want to say no to this building. I really want to, but I can't. With the framework and the laws before us, I have to give the nod of approval for the stage 1, which does not mean that I'm going to guarantee a stage 2. And I've done that before. If you look at my voting record, I've given a lot of stage 1 nods and then fought like hell to stop a stage 2 at the stage 2 level. But I don't know what else I can do. Mr. Quintero.
Well, I'm going to make a motion, and I'm going to incorporate his comments about the parking, so that the entire project is brought down and, in fact, parked beneath the surface. I assume I can do that, Ms. Garcia?
At this level, certainly direct.
So that way we have subterranean parking throughout the entire project. That shouldn't affect the green space. It shouldn't affect the design. So whenever the time comes.
Well, it's time for a motion to be made.
I would like to make a motion to approve it based on moving the parking from being overground to be subterranean parking.
I'll second that motion.
All right.
And one question before we vote. What about the design of the building?
Yeah, okay, I didn't talk about the design. For me, I think the design can use some, I don't know what word to use. Yeah, some adjustments. And by the way, I know that architects hate to mimic buildings, and our staff, including our historical person, doesn't like to mimic, sort of existing buildings. In fact, I think this building deserves to be mimicked, and I think that the design, that mid-century type of design, I think would work well on this, on the sort of residential portion. So I personally would like to see that. I'm not an architect; it'd be up to the design team and the project architect. But yeah, I think
so. That's a stage 2 discussion, isn't it? Yeah. So, but that's just a comment in a direction. Okay, so we have the motion, the original motion. Let's take roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Garpetia?
No.
Quintero?
yes.
Devine?
No.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Next item, please. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded. We're adjourned.